if some patient enters into IVF clinic and they're told guaranteed success, and then they're not genuinely discussing the success rate in your case. See, this is my personal suggestion that we should have a plan A, plan B, plan C in case that plan A doesn't work. Over the years, I've realized that people think that when they enter IVF clinic means they will undergo IVF. That is not true.
Why do fertility treatments in general have a lot of ethical gray areas as compared to other fields of medicine?
I would say infertility is just not a medical disease, it's a social stigma also.
As well.
So the patient is emotionally very vulnerable. You must have come across advertisements which are saying 90% success rate or some 99.9% success rate. So it is actually not true. So that is why we should have a transparency practice where we are quoting the actual success rate, which is around 35 to 40%.
Hi, welcome back to the Pluro podcast, where we openly talk about fertility and women health. Today we have Dr. Priya Dahiya with us, who is a senior gynecologist, fertility specialist, and a laparoscopic surgeon. With years of experience, Dr. Priya just doesn't get clinical expertise, but also healthcare leadership. Today she is here to help us understand what truly lies behind the numbers and the outcomes in an IVF journey, which is the responsibility and the ethical concerns that every patient has when they choose a fertility clinic. So, ma'am, many patients assume that, because the clinic is licensed or well known, it's ethical. What truly lies behind understanding which IVF clinic a patient should choose?
Yeah, it's a very, very important question. See, if you say license, I would say essentially they should be licensed, otherwise they cannot operate. But while choosing a clinic, a patient must see, whether they are licensed or not, what services they are offering. Because very often we come across places where they are keeping a big board IVF available, and they're just routing those patients to some other clinics. Then who is the treating doctor? And very importantly, how far it is from your place of stay, because you may be needing multiple visits to the clinic. So do not choose a clinic which is very, very far off and you're totally drained going there and making the visits.
Yeah. So, when we choose an IVF clinic, do we assume that because it's licensed, it's ethical by default? Or what is the difference or the variation between, say, two licensed clinics?
Yes. See, essentially, if they are licensed, there will not be gross malpractice. But two licensed clinics may operate differently in terms of honesty, transparency, and patient advocacy. There may be huge difference between those clinics.
Okay. What would you consider as red flags when you choose a clinic?
So if some patient enters into IVF clinic and they're told guaranteed success, it looks so glamorous, this guaranteed success rates, then if they're not transparent about their pricing policies, so I would suggest that patients should ask the pricing in writing so that they're not, they do not get fooled around. Then they are dismissing your relevant questions and they're rushing you through the treatment like it's now or never. अभी कह रही
Of urgency.
yeah, urgency that अभी आप करा लो, कल ही आपको ऑपरेट कर देते हैं, and you started. So it's the red flag. And then they're not genuinely discussing the success rate in your case. What are the real problems you're having? And see, this is my personal suggestion that we should have a plan A, plan B, plan C in case that plan A doesn't work. So what else you will offer me? How will you go ahead? A patient should openly discuss all these things with their treating doctor.
Say they might not need IVF directly.
Yeah, they might not. They may just sometimes, they may just need some investigations a little here and there and they are pregnant. So over the years, I've realized that people think that when they enter IVF clinic means they will undergo IVF. That is not true. They may just sometimes need just consultation, investigation, or simpler procedures, maybe laparoscopy or maybe IUI. So I think it's patients' right to ask the valid questions, ask what they need particularly.
Right. Why do fertility treatments in general have a lot of ethical gray areas as compared to other fields of medicine?
It's totally true that this field has a lot of gray areas. So first, because the patient is very vulnerable. I would say infertility just not a medical disease, it's a social stigma also.
As well.
So the patient is emotionally very vulnerable. Sometimes they say you can just take whatever it comes, but I just want a baby. So then like we discussed the financial part, emotional part, and sometimes there are cases where we have to say no, you can't. So if I'm saying no and then somebody comes across who says yes, the patient is definitely going to jump there and get exploited in terms of say money, emotions, everything. So this is filled which is a lot of gray areas, and that is why we believe that we should have ethical practices, we should have transparency and all that.
Which is why trust building is very important.
Trust building is very, very important here.
What do you think are the ethical concerns that surround IVF and fertility centers?
See, I would divide these ethical concerns into 3 areas. One is like physical, second is psychological, and third is obviously financial. When we say physical, that means there are some centers which do overstimulate, and patient might end up in hyperstimulation. Some clinics they do extra number of embryo transfers, like they're transferring 4, 5, so as to have higher success rate, which is totally unethical.
This might need to twins or triplets also.
Yeah, and when they have multiple pregnancies, they have low birth weight, preterm births, then preeclampsia, gestational diabetes. There's so many things which can happen. And if you ask me about psychological, yes, if we give them false hopes, over exaggerated, and when it doesn't happen, obviously they are in emotional trauma. And finances, yes, once they are into the cycle, then you have to pay for this, you have to pay for that we call it financial exploitation.
So IVF patients are quite vulnerable emotionally. They are stressed, hopeful, and also very invested in the outcome of this journey, right?
Yes.
So how does ethics kind of play a role in dealing with emotional vulnerability of patients?
See, when a patient is entering an IVF clinic, they are seeing that last ray of hope, in that situation where nothing is working. And they just want to hear the positive things.
And they're ready to do anything.
So when we are counseling them, we are just giving you, we will do this, we'll do that, we'll do. They're just saying, no, we are not interested in what are you going to do, just make me pregnant. So, they're so vulnerable at this point of time. And if you're guiding them and understanding their, what is going in their mind. So this is very important. As a clinician, we have to understand what is going in their mind. Sometimes they're not ready to hear what I want to say. They just want to hear a guarantee है, सब ठीक हो जाएगा, बच्चा मिल जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा, वो हो जाएगा. And when we are telling them that you have endometriosis, you may be needing this, you have fibroid, your condition is this, your lining is not great, and all these. So they are actually not listening to all those factors. They're just focusing on मुझे बच्चा कब मिल जाएगा, मैं कब प्रेग्नेंट हो जाऊंगी, डिलीवरी मेरा कब हो जाएगा. So I think at this point the patient and the doctor has to be on the same page. They have to even patient has to understand what medical condition doctor is talking about and what all may be needing and what is the real success rate in her case.
Which is why transparent communication.
Yeah, that is why transparent communication is very, very important.
So when ethical concerns arise and say the treatment that you're getting at a clinic is not right, what is the effect of it, not only at that particular treatment, but also afterwards on your physical health and say future fertility?
See, physical health, I will suggest we should discuss with them that this is the maximum number of cycles we will undergo and not beyond that. And same finances we have discussed. And emotionally, I've seen that if some patient has been cheated by some clinic or not, so they lose trust in each and every doctor. Sometimes they just give up the treatment, that I'm not going to go for any treatment. So I think at that point when in case she's coming to us, we have to give her the trust back.
Hmm.
You know,
उम्मीद.
उम्मीद कि अभी ऐसा नहीं होगा, आपको थोड़ा सा हिम्मत करके आना पड़ेगा.
Hmm.
So I just had a patient who had 17 failed cycles
My God.
at different centers all over India. And when she came to us, she was like, I do not trust anyone.
Yeah.
And we had to sit with her for maybe 2 hours to guide her. Although after 17 cycles, even, as a person, even I was thinking whether she should go ahead or not.
And body also takes a hit.
Yes, but then I went through papers and realized that at many places it was just kind of not done properly, and she had not. And guess what? In the first cycle itself, we did ICSI and everything, and she conceived.
Okay.
So sometimes the number of cycles she has undergone, actually number of cycles may be lesser.
Hmm. And these were at multiple clinics.
Multiple clinics all over India she had went. And but at that point while I was doing the counseling, I just realized one thing, that patient was very strong, and she said, I can do anything to get pregnant, and I'm ready for anything. And I think after that she had her second child also with us through IVF. So these are the stories that motivate us also, and they motivate other patients also, that it's not the end, that if one cycle has failed or 2 cycles have failed, it is not the end. You just have to go to the right people to get treated.
So that brings me to my next question, that when patient unknowingly lands up at an unethical or a malpracticing IVF clinic, how can she navigate her way?
That is very important for the patient to know, that if they have, they're trapped in a situation like that, first thing they have to go do is, move out as soon as possible. Then they, according to ART Act 2022, they can file a complaint in state authority as well as district authority. And there are enough provisions in the law to punish that particular IVF center if the patient has not been treated properly over there.
Yeah, so it's good to know that, the ART Act governs.
Yeah. So that way, I would say that ART Act has come up in a big way. It gives equal rights to the patient to know what is happening to them, and the power to them to file a complaint and get the whatever the practitioner punished.
Yeah. Great. So, ma'am, most patients are actually advised to look at infrastructure or years of experience or success rates when they choose an IVF clinic. But from an ethics standpoint, do you think transparency, consent, communication play a role?
It is very important. You must have come across advertisements which are saying 90% success rate or some 99.9% success rate. So it is actually not true. So that is why we should have a transparency practice where we are quoting the actual success rate, which is around 35 to 40%. That's a grossly I'm saying. Across the world, this is the success rate in IVF.
Depends on what factor.
Depends on what factors. Then if somebody is claiming to have 99% success rate, definitely that is not going to be true. And that is where transparency and a patient-centric approach comes into play. So if we have a patient-centric approach, we definitely would like to tell them the truth. This is your condition, these are the factors, these are the treatment options you have, and these are the real success rate in your case.
Ma'am, can you elaborate on what exactly do you mean by patient-centric?
Yes. Drishti, patient-centric means, if you, in a raw term, I would say that if I would have been in the place of that patient, so what I would have expected from that clinic or that doctor, so that is what I call it patient-centric. That while sitting on this side of table, we must always assume what would happen if we sit across the table. So here, first right of the patient is to have the adequate information. Discussion about the alternatives available. It's not IVF what we are offering. We can offer different kind of treatments.
So there are like 3 steps to this as well.
Yes. Thorough investigations, and customization of the treatment. So, and then holding their hands. In this era of AI, I think this is one point where we have to have that human touch, that we are there with her in her journey.
Absolutely.
And it is, so important. There are some patients who have undergone treatment. They have been with us for, say, 2 years, 3 years. And sometimes we do get a call at night when they are very happy or they are very depressed. So that connection is very, very important between the doctor and the patient.
Right. Like you just said that, it's quite an emotional journey more than a physical one as well. So how important do you think is to have a counselor at every IVF clinic to make sure the patient understands psychological, emotional, as well as financial needs of this journey?
It is very, very important. And as per ART Act, it is essential also to have a counselor. So why they're needed is, see, the patient has come to me, I've treated her, she's got a positive result, she's all happy. We do not need any third person in between. But when she's negative,
Right.
now as a doctor, I can counsel her about medical facts or general things, but I do not have the tools to tell her what she should do when she's very anxious, very depressed, very negative. So, a trained counselor who knows all the
Psychological.
psychological aspects, that how when she's anxious, what she's supposed to do, and what all kind of things. I think it is very, very important.
So, ma'am, let's talk about regulation because it's very important for patients to understand that they're backed by the legal authorities as well. So, what does the Indian Council of Medical Research or ICMR play a role in this? And how can patients entrust the authority?
See, ICMR, Drishti, it was in place before ART Act came. In 2021 and 22, the act was implemented. Before that, ICMR has given us guidelines. They had given us proper informed consent, the way we should take the consent. After the act is into place, ICMR has now no role in this ART, whatever implementation of the guidelines and everything. So earlier it was there. ICMR is totally into research now. They are not into
So now only the Assisted Reproductive Techniques Act, the ART Act, governs.
They are called ART authorities at state level and district level. They are operating, and every state has a different ART authority.
So the patients can reach out to them.
Yes,
for their
they can reach out to them.
Right. So, ma'am, before we wrap up, say you were at the patient's end, that's what you said. And if there was one question that the patient could ask to assess whether the clinic is ethical, what that question would be and why?
Yeah, it is actually very difficult question that one question. If I really if you ask me the truth, they should definitely ask this important question, that in my case, at my age, with this medical condition, with all the history investigation, what will be the real success rate according to you for me? So this is very, very important.
Thank you, Dr. Priya, for guiding us through this journey. IVF as a journey is built on hope and is supported by transparency and communication. So, whenever you choose an IVF clinic, make sure you look beyond the success rates. You look at honesty and transparency. And to all our listeners, please keep asking questions because asking questions is empowering. Thank you.